You are listening to the Disney Dream Girls, an unofficial Disney Theme Parks podcast, and this is show number 540 for Sunday, the 9th of March, 2025.
Where dreams begin.
Hello and welcome to this week's Disney Dream Girls. My name is Michelle Young, and together with my jolly good chum Jane Phipps, we are your guides to the place where dreams begin. Well, as you know, by checking on our socials, Jane is over there in Walt Disney World and enjoying herself. So why not sit back and relax and enjoy, as we are joined this week by the lovely Kat from Dis Down Under. Hello, Kat, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Michelle. How are you going?
All the better for having you with me to pilot through your last trip over to the USA.
And what a trip it was. But you went on a trip as well.
I did. I went to Disneyland for one day and then I went to Mexico, which Liz said about that, the better for the moment.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to put a pin in that one. I did enjoy myself, by the way, FYI. It's, complicated, shall we say. Let's talk a little bit about your trip back. How long was it since you had been to Walt Disney World?
We last went in May 2019. So it had been a tidy 5 years since we'd actually set foot in the place, and it was well overdue. But it was also about working out timing as to when we could go and spend a decent chunk of time, because during that period, Lewis changed jobs. So he had a little bit less annual leave saved up, which complicated things a little bit. But we managed to get it booked in, and we left on, it was Christmas Eve that we flew out. Well, because we arrived on Christmas Day, because of course we've got the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey aspect of traveling from halfway around the world. And so we left here on Christmas Eve, and then we got there and we were sitting down to dinner by about 7 o'clock at the boat shed on Christmas Day.
This is quite funny because we both took our journeys on Christmas Eve, but the way the time zones work, I went back in time. So I still had Christmas Eve in the UK and Christmas Eve in the USA because of the 8-9 hour difference. But you were still on an aeroplane, or several aeroplanes.
Yeah, we had a couple of flights. So we had to fly from Perth to Sydney, and then Sydney to Dallas Fort Worth, which was a tidy 15 and a half hours, I believe. And then after a short layover there, we headed on to Orlando.
Wow. And prior to that, 2019, I know we had our epic trip to Walt Disney World with Disney Fantasy Cruise in 2018. How many times had you managed to go to Walt Disney World prior to that?
Prior to that, we'd been once. So we went in 2000 and, oh my goodness, my memory's escaping me. I believe it was 2016. That's terrible, isn't it, when you can't think? All the dates run in together. And then we went back on that epic trip that we had with you in 2018. So this was our fourth trip to Walt Disney World.
So it's not like you're beginners, but there was a lot of changes in the last few years that might have made a few places seem a little bit different.
There are a lot of changes, not just in the attractions that had changed, but also how you got onto the attractions, because we'd lost our beloved fast passes and we're into the new territory with the lightning lanes, and so we had to sort of navigate that, as well as just really enjoying the new attractions that I had available.
Okay, let's talk a little bit then, to start with, about transportation between the parks, because this would have been your first Skyliner experience.
Spot on. So that was a game changer for us. We found that the Skyliner, particularly at that time of year, because obviously Christmas, it's you don't have the heat to deal with as much. It was fairly warm on a couple of days, but generally speaking, it was a bit cooler. So Skyliner was a really ideal form of transport, and staying at POP like we did, it meant that we had it literally right on our doorstep.
And I believe you were very fortunate that most of the remodelling work in the dining and shop area had been completed.
It had the door out to where you get the resort buses at the front of the resort. That wasn't open yet. So you still had to go through the lobby and through the, I guess, the back door, but the resort side.
Okay. So that was a massive change. When you were
No.
thinking about planning your trip, how did you decide to split up your time with regards to the parks? Because how many park days did you have?
We had 10 days. So there were a couple of factors for us. One was getting to the things that we'd never done before because, of course, 2019, we had access to an annual pass and we were there buying our annual pass holder t-shirts for Galaxy's Edge thinking, right, 2020, we're going to be over in Galaxy's Edge. Well, we weren't. And so, surprise, surprise. And so for us, it was about prioritizing, obviously, getting to Galaxy's Edge because Lewis is a massive Star Wars fan. I enjoy the property as well. And so we're really keen to give ourselves enough time in Hollywood Studios to enjoy that. There was also the addition of Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. So we wanted to make sure that we could enjoy that. I mean, Ratatouille, we wanted to go on, but it wasn't as much of a highlight having been on it quite a few times in Paris before. Other side of things was over at Magic Kingdom. Of course, we had the opening of Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and of course, Tron Light Cycle was open. So we kind of wanted to give ourselves enough time to enjoy those new things, but also to say goodbye to some beloved attractions that were going to be no longer there probably by the time that we next went. So we wanted to go across to Tom Sawyer Island, and we wanted to enjoy Dinosaur. Well, I say enjoy. For Lewis, it's enjoy Dinosaur, but for me, it was just like waving goodbye. And oh no, wait, hang on a second. The line's only 5 minutes. Lewis wants to go on it again. And I know Stephen's probably out there yelling at his listening device right now, but it's something that the attraction is so much better when it's the Indiana Jones version. Dinosaur for me it's too dark. There's not enough visually happening, and so you kind of get a bit bored and thrown around. It's just not my kind of attraction.
But you were mentioning Animal Kingdom and you did not mention the A-list attraction that Stephen will be yelling about right now anyway. It's Tough to Be a Bug is going away.
It is, and we made sure we got on that as well. What was the other thing that we jumped onto because that's going to be going? Oh, sorry, Muppet Vision 3D. That's
Absolutely.
And we got on to the Rock and Roller Coaster because we thought, well, that's going to be disappearing or perhaps being rebranded. So we just wanted to give those things a bit of a go.
Now, you were going to be there at Christmas. Had you done Walt Disney World before at Christmas?
No, sorry, I completely glossed over that. So no, first time doing Walt Disney World at Christmas. We've done Hong Kong, Shanghai, well, both at Christmas time. Disneyland Paris we'd done at New Year. So we've sort of seen the decorations and seen how wonderful it can be. We were completely unprepared for how gorgeous it was going to be over there. Even like Epcot, which, you know, you had the trees up and all the lights, and you just didn't realize to what extent they were going to roll out the Christmas feels. And so we had our Christmas spirit jerseys. Well, actually, I had mine. I don't think Lewis has one. And we just really took advantage of those Christmas vibes.
So planning the trip in advance, bearing in mind the time of year, what did you plan for New Year's Eve? Because for me, it screams there's only one place in Walt Disney World where you should be. Perhaps you were thinking a different way to me.
Well, for us, it was Epcot because for us, I mean, New Year's Eve, we recognise we've got friends all across the world and everyone sort of celebrates in their own way. But also everyone's celebrating at a different time because as the time zones move through. So It was really cool that we chose Epcot for a couple of reasons. One, we had a really delightful meal at La Celia, and we did sort of like a late dinner, but we had a really good day in the park, just going around and doing the each of the countries' shows that they offer, and just really having a relaxing day, in part because we were forced to, because there were so many people in the park. You couldn't move fast if you wanted to. But it was a really relaxing day. It was an enjoyable day, and the fireworks were conducted in order of where it was being celebrated around the world. So they did their normal show at about, or I think it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock that they rolled out the regular fireworks. And then they did at midnight a big celebration, and it went all around the world showcase and celebrated each country and recognized each country, how long ago they'd celebrated the New Year. So it was a nice place to enjoy it.
But busy.
Very busy. We were clever though, Michelle,
Oh, go on.
because we realized that we were going to want to get onto the Skyliner once the fireworks were done. We were pretty much done. We'd had to start our day a lot earlier than we expected. And so we thought, once the fireworks are done, we've had a good day. We might head off. So when we chose a spot to watch the fireworks from, we actually jumped onto that bridge that unites the United Kingdom with France. And that was ideal because we could make a hasty exit. We were back in the hotel by 12:30.
That is such a bonus of the International Gateway, having the Skyliner. It is just such a boon being able to stay at Pop as well. Yeah, and I appreciate that because it was very similar to us last year when we went sort of Christmas time. We could just walk back to the Swan and Dolphin because it was just literally a 10-minute walk. I think the quickest we did it was 12 minutes. So,
Wow, that's decent. But that is the great thing about that resort area, is that you do have really good access to Epcot, and I could see the advantage of staying there. Unfortunately, our budget and the blessed American dollar meant that that wasn't going to be possible for us this trip. So having the Skyliner made it absolutely brilliant.
yes, less said about the currency exchange rate, the better, because it is killing us overseas.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's start park by park, talking a little bit about the newer attractions, the new ones for you, shall we say, and your thoughts and opinion of them. So let's start with the biggie. Let's go to Magic Kingdom. You'd obviously ridden Tron before. UK version, USA version the same?
It's the same in terms of the attraction. I think the ride vehicle has been altered slightly. What we both felt was the back pad that holds your sort of torso down probably sounds a little bit more restricting than what it is, but it comes down a lot firmer in the Shanghai version, and the brackets that hold, or they sort of clamp your calves with the, not in an aggressive way, but they do sort of hold you, so you're not going to fall out. And they seem to be a little bit looser in the US version compared to Shanghai as well. The other major change was, apart from all the announcements being in English and not having English subtitles with with shivers, Mandarin being spoken, the other big difference was the locker system. So in Shanghai, before you enter the queue for the attraction, you need to go and deposit any large items in a locker. So that means that you've kind of got these people hastily trying to get to a locker and then hastily get back to the queue, which is fine. It worked okay, but it also meant that you've got people exiting and trying to get to their items and their locker and get out of the queue. So it wasn't the one-way system that they've got set up at Walt Disney World, where accessing the locker is part of the queue. And so you just tap your magic band and you can get a card from a cast member that'll open the locker, pop your stuff in, jump onto the attraction, and then you access your bag from the same locker number, but from the other side. So it's like a one-way system, means that people aren't getting in each other's way. Really simple, really effective little change.
I think that's a really good point, because you're right, it does cause a lot of problems if you're having to go do that first. But the way it's done in the States, they've obviously thought about Shanghai and thought, yeah, we can do this better.
Yeah, yeah. And perhaps I'll upgrade Shanghai at some point to make that part of the ride queue and work out a way to do the double-sided lockers, because I think it's hugely effective. And we both remarked as soon as we had completed our first loop that it was absolutely brilliant, that change. Just something really simple, effective, and it made a big difference to our experience.
Totally new to you, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. What did you think about that?
I was pleasantly surprised. I think that they have taken an attraction. I know it was controversial because it was beloved by so many, but they've taken an attraction that had some music in it and some things to look at, and they've just ramped it up. So I really felt like that music was central to the attraction throughout the attraction. I felt that there were more animatronics, there were more things to look at, a little bit more storyline running through it. And I think the use of screens was actually really well done as well.
I think my main gripe, two gripes I'm going to have, is I think the finale scene could have been bigger. It just seemed quite a small segment. And the second bit is reliability of the audio animatronics, because I rode it a few times, and every time the lip sync wasn't right, or the mouths weren't working and they were just frozen, or the ride was even down.
I think that this is a problem that Disney could do with throwing a few dollars at, all those extra dollars that they're making from us going back to the parks and, the Lightning Lane and things. I think that they could do with taking some of those dollars and budgeting them towards improving animatronics and reliability. I think there has to be a way to get it done. They've got some real bright sparks working for them, and I think that they should maybe just set up a working group to deal with that, because it is a shame to see how often the animatronics-based attractions are out of service. And we know it's not the ride vehicle, particularly with Tiana's, because it was hugely reliable when it was in its previous iteration.
Yeah, agreed. You mentioned going over to Tom Sawyer Island.
Yeah, first time that we'd done it. And it was amazing. It was like just one of those things where you could have a quiet moment away from the hustle and bustle. There weren't a lot of people over there. You just go over on the little raft. I thought that was quite quaint. And then when you're over there, there's lots to explore. There's even like a little cave system that takes you through the island but underground, so that you can go and see the other side without having to walk all the way around. It's very cute. And I thought that it was just, I don't know, just something a little bit more change of pace that was interesting to do. And so we had, I can't remember how long we had out there, but even the view of Big Thunder Mountain was absolutely brilliant from out there. You could see it, and it's just there, and there's a great photo opportunity. And Lewis got, I sort of tried to avoid it, but he's like, come up here, you need to look at this. And so he was sort of wandering around the fort and things. Yeah. But it was lovely, and it felt a little bit almost sort of like back to nature-y as well, because you had turtles that were sort of doing their little turtle-y thing, and ducks and other kinds of wildlife that was sort of floating around near the island. So it was just nice. It was nice to do. I can see why they have decided to repurpose the area, because I think that it is probably not that well utilised, and it is a big area that they could fit more people into. But I think it's great that we got to experience it.
Fab. I think for me, thinking now for the next pack I want to discuss with you, I think the one that is going to be radically the most changed is going to be Hollywood Studios. So let's chat through. Let's take ourselves over to Galaxy's Edge.
Wow. So where you walk past Star Tours and you walk down that alley past Baseline Tap House and you're walking towards Galaxy's Edge, there's nothing that prepares you for it. So prior to, obviously, in our 2019 trip, there's a photo of us looking very, very sad outside some very, very closed gates that were up in that area. And this time we were able to walk through and enter into Galaxy's Edge for the first time. And it was just jaw-droppingly well-themed from that moment that you stepped through. And we looked at all the people waiting and queuing up for Rise of the Resistance. And we kept on walking and we got ourselves a Ronto wrap and we sat down and just went, wow, this is great. This is really something else. And then we admired the view as well, because now the Ronto wraps were actually something that we really, really enjoyed. We thought that they were quite a good little, well, it became our little breakfast treat. But just sitting there and you'd be watching some stormtroopers harassing people, and then some characters would walk through, and it was just perfectly done, like right down to the griminess that you felt. That the shops feel a bit grimy, and you go to buy an article of clothing and have to remind yourself that it is just made to look like it's grimy in the shop. It's not actually grimy. It's really exceptional, I found.
What about the attractions? What did you think to them?
I thought that we were really, really lucky. So our first, because we did invest in Lightning Lane, but our first attraction that we got onto, was it? I'm just trying to think. I think it was Smuggler's Run. And we were really, really fortunate in that where we were in the queue, we both got to pilot.
Wow.
And I thought it was fabulous. Lewis, on the other hand, he felt that it was too close to the screens and that it was too much that he had to concentrate on. Mm-hmm. So he felt like he didn't enjoy the journey as much. Completely disagree with that. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. I really enjoyed that there was an aspect of participating and having a bearing on the outcome. I thought that was great fun. I'd love to have 6 people so that you could go in and do it as a group. I think that would be fabulous to be able to fill all the seats just with your group, because you could be yelling at each other and just really interacting as well as having what's going on screen.
We did that in Disneyland with our friends Tommy, Lena and Nan. The 5 of us went, and they graciously said, be the pilots. And because they were behind us, they were enjoying the journey. We were laughing, we were screaming, we were giggling, and it was so much better than when you're a British person and you're with people you don't know. You're very standoffish and very quiet. So when we'd been at the back and we didn't have the pilot role, we were the engineers, it was boring as hell. So I'm sorry, Lewis, you're wrong. Kat is right. Having the pilot role is the best, and to make it even better is to be with people that you know.
I think so. And look, I mean, we were lucky across the times that we went on there. We did single rider, so we got split off into different ride vehicles, and we both ended up being gunners, I think, on that run. And then we both ended up being engineers because we both ended up being engineers on our single rider run. And then there was another run that we ended up both being pilots again. And we said to the people behind us, hey, do you want to do the pilot role? Because we wouldn't mind doing engineer. And they were like, yeah, we've got no idea what we're doing, but let's do this. And so that was good fun as well. I think that attraction for me was probably better than Rise of the Resistance, purely because of the unreliability of Rise. Rise of the Resistance is a great concept, and I think that if it was more reliable, it would be a less stressful thing to try and get onto. Because if I'd waited for an hour in the queue, or sometimes longer, as some people have had to do, if I got to the front of the queue and they pushed me past the transport and I was then walked past the stormtroopers and then didn't get to see Rey and BB-8, it would just be... Sorry, I've kind of done that in reverse, but I think that would be a huge disappointment because that's half the attraction.
Yeah.
And that's a chunk of the storyline that you're missing out on. So we were lucky. Our first run was pretty good. Our second run, we did have that experience of basically being skipped forward to being sorted out as prisoners, and that's where we joined the journey. And that was a bit average. We did talk to a cast member, and the initial response was that you just missed out on the pre-show. It's like, brr.
No, you miss out on a whole chunk of the story and, as you say, half of the attraction, because you need that element to make it all make sense. And I suppose if you've ridden it lots and lots and you want to go down the single rider line if offered, and you choose to miss that, that's different than being just said, no, we're going straight into the Stormtrooper room.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if it was more reliable, I think I'd probably rate it higher. I didn't find it an unenjoyable attraction to be on. It was just more that you didn't know whether you were going to be getting the A story or the B story because of whether the Wicked Witch of the West was actually working or not. And so you didn't know what was going to be working otherwise within the attraction. And I think that if you step away from that, though, the trackless system that they've installed and the variation throughout the ride is incredible. It's so much fun, and you really do feel like you're going on a little adventure. And I think that they've taken previous trackless systems and they've really, really made it even a hardier adventure than, you know, the Mystic Manor, than Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. It's something that they've really built on, done a really good job of. It's just a shame that those animatronics are letting them down. So go back to my previous point, invest some money in it, Disney.
Okay, so we'll park Galaxy's Edge and we'll leave that for the moment. I do know you go into some detail on your own podcast talking about your Cantina experience. So if you want to hear about that, where are they going to find that cat?
They can find that on Diz Down Under, which is available both on the website dizdownunder.com and through your podcasting app of choice. Suffice to say that it was a bit of a disappointment. It was just like a bit of a calamity of circumstances in terms of where we were sitting, and our host wasn't the best. And so we did actually catch up with, we met a lovely couple when we were on our cruise, and they gave us a top tip. Would you like to hear it, Michelle?
Go for it.
So the top tip is book your reservation as late in the evening as possible. 9:30, whatever the latest time is, book it. Because two things. Apparently the cast members are a lot more relaxed, and so they're not as stringent on the time side of things. But the second thing is that you get to walk out of the area in the dark, which is kind of cool. So you have a much more relaxed experience. The couple that we met, they said, you know, they've got a couple of times that have done it, and they always end up like having photos with the cast members and having some great chats. So I think that if we were to go back, we'd give that a shot, because as it stood, we had 3 reservations, and after the first one, it was quite a disappointment, and we decided not to go back.
Was there anything else new in Hollywood Studios? Mickey and Minnie's?
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, that was fabulous. We got to rope drop that, so as well as experiencing it through the Lightning Lane, and it was just gorgeous. My niece and nephew are mad into the cartoon. My sister's youngest doesn't quite have the language skills. I think he's only just turned, was he about 18 months now? And so he doesn't have the language skills for Mickey Mouse. He calls him hot dog because he says it constantly. And Lewis always thinks that's kind of appropriate because, of course, it was Mickey Mouse's first words. So to go in and enjoy an attraction, to think that those kids might one day be able to go and enjoy it themselves, I think that that's pretty special.
Yeah, it is very, very cute. I love it.
It's gorgeous. It's just like, and it's fun. It's so much fun. You get thrown around, again, using that trackless system that's just such a great way to take people on a little adventure. And I mean, I know that the previous attraction that was housed in that building was very beloved, but I think that this is a great little upgrade.
Fab. Last but not least, on our little bit of a theme park chat, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
Oh my goodness. So you know how much I absolutely loved Mission Breakout. I thought, as a change to the Tower of Terror, I thought that it was just amazing. You know, the theming, the use of screens, oh my goodness, it was amazing. And then we got onto Cosmic Rewind, and you'd spoken about it so fondly, and we've had other Disney friends have spoken about it so fondly, and we're like, oh no, what if we hate it? And then we're like, it's Guardians of the Galaxy, surely it's going to meet our expectations. And it didn't. It completely exceeded them. I have never been on, I guess, is it classified as a roller coaster?
Yeah, I'd classify it as a roller coaster come dark ride come best 2 minutes of your life.
Well, it's kind of a thing of its own, isn't it? And I think that that's what makes it so special, is that you've got a cute little storyline to get you started, and then it just becomes like Space Mountain on steroids. And I couldn't believe how much fun it was. And then I sat at the front, and it was just like a whole new attraction. It was like you were surfing your way down the jump point. And it was just so much fun, so exhilarating, but great storyline. And I do find it a little bit tedious sometimes when there's too many bits that you've got to go through in order to finally get onto the attraction. But I think that was really, really well done with getting the pre-story from Alpha Prime. Oh my goodness, I can't think what
the Glenn Close character.
Yeah, I can't think what her character's name is. So you get that, and then you go into the next room and you think, what's happening? And you get taken up onto a ship, and it's just all thumbs up from me.
And it's got such re-rideability. Like the first time we went, we were like buying lightning lanes like nobody's business. Like they were like $2 a piece, because it was like, I've got to ride it again.
Yeah, it was worth the investment. It was worth the investment buying Lightning Lane. It was worth the investment getting up at 7 a.m. to try and get forgive me, what's the reservation? No,
virtual
queue. Thank you. It was worth that. It was worth just, if I could have waited in queue for it, I honestly think I would have if I'd needed to, because it was just fabulous.
I completely agree. And the music, the tracks that they've chosen just work so well.
Definitely. It was, I think we got Conga a couple of times. We ended up with 3 of the tunes, and one of which is just escaping my mind right now. That's terrible, isn't it?
It's so easy how all of this information just suddenly departs from your head when you're trying to recall it. It's called old age. We're getting on,
Yeah,
love.
and going back to work. I mean, who makes us do that? Blah. But yeah, I just think it's got such rewritability. I think that the only shame is that I guess they want it to blend in with the rest of Epcot, is that the outside of the building doesn't have much. I know it's got the ship outside, and it does have some really good magic shots available if you've got PhotoPass, but it's kind of very low key from the outside, in my opinion.
It's quite a stark building, which fits into what was there before Ellen's Energy Adventure, which was very, very simplistic from the outside with the same sort of straight, clean line edges. So maybe they were just sort of harking back to that, or making, they were trying to get this attraction up nice and quickly. Let's just, the fun's on the inside type of thing.
Yeah, it was, and the fun was, One Way or Another. That was the name of that tune that we got.
I'm gonna get you one way.
Just such a great little, like, while all the little fighty bits are happening, and so good, so good.
I'm still stunned. Years after its opening, we still do not have a food and bev outlet connected to that attraction, because cake toast, I am sorry, why aren't we getting cake toast on a cupcake? There are so many things that they could sell in a little stand that links in with that. You could have some drinks, you could have some food, you could have some snacks. Sell it, come on, Disney, there is land there. Make a little place that fits into that. You've got cookies that you can do, cupcakes that you can do. There's just so much, a little portable, the Zagnuts.
Yeah.
And then some alcoholic beverages. You're just throwing money in the wind, Disney.
Well, you could, because you could probably get a brewery to make some Guardians of the Galaxy themed brews.
Oh, absolutely.
So much you could do with that.
Just don't have the brews and the food before the attraction if you are that way inclined.
Yeah, that's the thing that got me. I mean, I'm not prone to motion sickness, but the first time we got onto it, Lewis said, "Oh, no, we're not eating before we get on it. I've heard that it can be quite the tummy turner." I was just like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." So we jump on it. I'm like going, "I don't know what you're on about." But again, we don't really suffer from motion sickness, so we're quite lucky.
Yeah, true. I know we mentioned at the beginning of the show that you invested into Lightning Lanes, and I know that you have discussed this on your podcast. So I'm going to leave that discussion so that people can discover it on your show where you've talked about it, because I'm quite keen to sort of move on to the second part of your amazing American adventure, because you got to ride back to back on the Disney Wish.
We did. Look, when we were heading over there, we did decide to look and see what was going to be available in terms of cruises, and the idea of going back to the theme parks to do all the things that we hadn't been able to do that were new in that time since 2019 was one thing, but looking at the timing and working out that we could do a back-to-back on the Wish, that was like, it was good thing to have, like, to look forward to throughout it was just over a year, I think, prior to sailing that we booked that. So the Wish, it was an interesting prospect because obviously we've got friends that have been on it, and there's been a lot of feedback, particularly about the layout. So we went on there with an open mind, knowing that we might have to take the stairs. But we did, when we've been on the Fantasy and the Wonder, we tended to take the stairs when we could anyway, because why would you tie up a elevator when we're perfectly capable of taking the stairs, and there's people with prams and mobility devices that might benefit from it, or, just, have knees that can't take the stairs, then, let them take the elevators, and we'll take the stairs where possible. There were a couple of exceptions to that, obviously. If you're going up to the upper decks to indulge in an adult restaurant, you've just gotten all frocked up. Well, I don't want to sweat my makeup off, do I?
True.
So you just jump in and take the elevator in those circumstances. But look, the Wish was everything and more that we could really hope for it to be. It was a good idea, I think, of ours to do the back-to-back rather than just going, well, we'll do the 4-night. I think doing the back-to-back allowed us to really settle into the environment. So the first sailing was the 4-night, and so we had that day at sea. That really makes you feel at home, don't you think, those days at sea where you've got some good solid time on board with no distractions of ports and things. So that was quite good in terms of the timing of that. So we had plenty of time to enjoy the boat itself. Obviously got through all of the onboard restaurants twice, which was a bit of a treat, especially with the Frozen restaurant having entertainment. It meant that we sort of got to, I don't know, like it's like watching a movie the second time. You just pick up little subtleties the next time that you get to go see it. So that was really cool. I think that it's a great upgrade on the what were previously the larger ships in the fleet, the Fantasy and the Dream, particularly around that outside deck area and the quick server seats that you can enjoy around there. I thought that was quite the upgrade. The barbecue joint was A+. Oh my goodness, Jade. I'm just so envious that you get to go and experience that. Go have lunch there at least once. It was great. And being the meaty, loving kind of people that you are, I think you'll enjoy that. And then being able to make tacos and things like that, that was quite a treat as well, where obviously they were made by the people serving you, but you got to say what you did or didn't want in them. There was plenty of variety of things to do, to see, to eat. It was a really nice 7 nights, and it was nice to be sailing on a bigger ship again, because the Wonder was really lovely, but you do kind of get to that point where it's just like, I think we've done everything now. Whereas we didn't run out of anything to do on the Wish.
I suppose with the introduction of the themed bars as well, that adds another level to what you can do as an adult couple going and enjoying a cruise ship, opposed to like a family.
Yeah. I think that we didn't really do as much of the bar thing as we normally would, to be honest. I think that we had plans to go back up and enjoy oh my goodness, is it called the Enchanted Rose? No, that's Walt Disney World, isn't it? I'm trying to think. There's the bar that connects Enchante and Palo Steakhouse, and we were going to go back up there and enjoy a beverage, and we just ran out of time doing other things. I was a little bit disappointed with the Star Wars bar. I think that if you were there maybe with a few more people, it might have been a little bit more, I don't know, really. Like, it's weird because the Skyline bar on the Fantasy, Lewis and I went there obviously with you and Stephen, and we also went there just as a couple, and we found that was quite nice. You go in there and have a little beverage and, the bar snacks that they serve up. And it was quite nice because you had the lovely scenery changing behind the bar. I mean, the Star Wars bar is a similar concept, but it didn't really have it didn't have the same warmth to it or vibe to it. So we only had 2 drinks there across the 7 nights.
Wow. So for Star Wars people like you, that is quite a surprise for me. I thought you would have enjoyed that. What did you make to the restaurants?
The restaurants I thought were good. I really liked the idea of the theatre in the round that they've got with the Frozen restaurant. I thought that was really, really well done. The entertainment was great. And the performers were amazing, absolutely amazing. So Wandering Oaken sort of holds the show together, and the performer in that role is just absolutely fabulous, just really good at interacting with the crowd, really good at keeping things going. And we actually watched them adapt because the performer who had originally played Christoph in the first sailing that we did, I don't know whether he wasn't available or had fallen ill or something, but they had another performer in that role who I don't think he didn't know the role particularly well, perhaps, or he didn't have the capacity to sing as well. And so there were some aspects that they changed, but they did it almost seamlessly. If you hadn't seen the other show, you wouldn't have known.
And that's, I suppose, the beauty of doing the back-to-back, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was interesting. I think that the food was satisfactory. I don't think it was as amazing as the food that we enjoyed on the Fantasy in 2018 and 2019. I think that the offerings were not unenjoyable, but nothing out of this world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things where, I mean, you're on a Disney boat, so you're not going to get too upset about being on a Disney boat and getting fed meals. But I just don't think it didn't have the wow factor that we'd experienced on the Fantasy with some of the dishes there. 1923, I thought was the first time that we were there. It was a very, very busy sailing. I mean, both of them were full. There were a lot of large family groups, and my understanding was that it was towards the end of a lot of the South American countries' holidays. Mm-hmm. And so there were very, very large family groups in the dining room on our first sailing. And I was just like, oh, it doesn't really feel that great, because the hall that you walk through to get to where the larger dining room is, it felt like that was nice and quaint and people were just sort of having a lovely meal. And then it felt like a food hall almost by the time we got down to where we were seated. And it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the best, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It was a vast difference on the second sailing, where there were less large family groups, and the table configuration, even though we were sat at the same table because we requested to keep our servers for the second sailing, they'd actually moved around the tables, obviously to accommodate different combinations of people. And it was a very different dining experience. It's bizarre, isn't it? How just like one little change can make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any top tips you'd like to share with Jane so that she can get the most out of her Wish experience?
She's on the 4-night, isn't she?
Yes, I believe so.
Definitely make the most out of that day at sea. Definitely consider whether you get off the boat in sounds terrible, isn't it? It's just when you go on part of the joy of going on a journey is to jump off and experience different cultures and to experience different places as well. But I just found that obviously getting off at Castaway Cay was absolutely gorgeous. I just, as far as the Bahamas go, I found that the time that we got off the ship, it was okay, but it wasn't something that I'd rave about. We did a land and sea tour, and so I thought that Seabit was actually really fantastic, and we got to see a lot of stuff, and we learnt from the tour guide on that part a lot about the island and the Bahamas in general. But I found that the land aspect the tour guide was completely disengaged. He was more interested in being on his phone, and the times that we spent at stops seemed completely like out of whack in terms of he'd be like, okay, meet back at the bus at 9 o'clock, but he wouldn't actually get back to the bus until about 10 past 9. And so that made things little bits of like, oh, that makes the tour a little bit shorter in other aspects. So I don't think that we got to see all the stops that we were supposed to see. But like I said, the sea part was absolutely fantastic. But I just thought that as far as ports go, I don't think that it was particularly one worth getting off at. So I'd encourage Jane to perhaps consider whether she does a port excursion there or gets off the boat at all.
I think from what she's discussed with me, I think she's not got anything planned. She just wants to get off at Castaway and then perhaps enjoy the boat. So they'll have their routine of using the gym, probably getting the spa passes and using that side of it to keep into their normal daily routine, and then just enjoy the ship, because you're paying a lot of money for the Disney brand. And if you're going to go off and spend more money on exploring the port when really there isn't anything in the port that excites you, then I totally get with that.
Yeah, well, when you consider it to, when we'd been on the Eastern and the Western Caribbean sailings and really enjoyed those ports, I think that it fell a little bit flat to me. But you mentioned the rainforest room. If she can find the extra pennies to splurge for a rainforest room pass, please do it, Jane, please. Because it's really, really lovely having that routine of being able to go and have a soak in the tub, have a steam in the steam room. If you're into the sauna thing, do the dry sauna as well. They do have I think they call it a frigarium or something like that. And it had all this ice and stuff. I think it was supposed to be colder than what it was. But basically had ice that you could rub over yourself and stuff after being in the sauna. So that was there as well. And it was lovely. Make yourself a cup of tea and then go and lie on the little hanging, swinging chair things and relax. Well, not lie. We napped out there once for a good 3/4 of an hour. I was just like, we're wasting good ship time here. But it was so relaxing. So relaxing.
That sounds fantastic, and I'm sure you'll be unpicking your trip a lot more on your own podcast, going on in a little bit more detail. So I can highly recommend going over to Disdown and on socials, finding the show and finding out about Kat and Lewis's Disney life, travels and other future plans in the future.
And occasional dog barks in the background.
And the occasional dogs in the background, as I have my occasional cats that meow here.
It's because we had Burmese cat at one stage, or I've had a few in my life. And so every time I do tend to look behind me, just going, rogue?
Yeah, it's always Lily. It's always Lily who sits outside the study door and meows. And it's not because she wants to come and sit on my knee. It's because she wants to know what's happening, because she's in charge of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for listening to the Disney Dream Girl Cat podcast. I hope you've all enjoyed it, a cat in more than one way. I would like to thank our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/Disney Dream Girls. If you would like to support the show over there, please do check it out. We will share extra content and give you the show a little bit in advance of everybody else. As we've said, you know how to hit up Kat and Lewis, who's normally her co-host. And until next time, it's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.